Hi, my name is Brenton Harrison, and we're here for part 3 in our series on equity-based compensation with a video on something called ESPPs, or Employee Stock Purchase Plans. Let's get started. One of the first things that we did in our series on equity-based compensation is make sure you know that there are really two different categories of equity-based comp. One of them is will be yours benefits, and these are benefits where as long as you meet certain rules, stay at a company for a certain period of time, you will get the benefit of having them in your paycheck, in your portfolio. And then there are could be yours benefits. And could be yours benefits are benefits that give you the opportunity to participate in a certain type of compensation, but you actually have to pull your money out of your pocket and pay for it in order to do so. In part 1, where we cover restricted stock units, we let you know that those are will be yours benefits. If you follow the terms of the vesting schedule outlined in your restricted stock unit offering, they will be yours at a given point in time. And then in part 2, we talked about stock options, and those were our first could be yours benefits, where you're with an option, you're given the ability to pay for a certain amount of company stock at a certain price and a certain point in time, but you do have to make the decision to actually buy that stock. The subject of today's video, employee stock purchase plans, are another form of could be yours benefits. And to summarize them in one key sentence, an employee stock purchase plan is the opportunity for employees to buy company stock at a discount to its fair market value. Now, you can't just walk into the company from day one and buy shares at a discount to its fair market value. You got to be there for a little while first. And in many cases, that length of time is 1 year. You have to have been employed there for at least a year before you can participate in the ESPP. And there is also an additional restriction that says you can't participate in the program at any point if you already own more than 5% of company stock. But if you're going to understand ESPPs, there's a lot more we have to get into, starting with the process of actually purchasing company stock. For reasons that will become very clear, you can't just, even if you're eligible, decide that you're going to participate in the ESPP at any point in the year. In fact, companies are going to make you make the decision of whether you want to participate during what's called the enrollment period. And the enrollment period typically takes place 2 to 4 weeks before something called the offering period, which is what we'll cover in a little bit. And during this enrollment period, companies are going to furnish all the details an employee would need to make a reasonable and informed decision on whether or not they want to participate. They will give you the exact discount. They'll give you the length of time of the offering period. They'll even give you the exact date that these shares are going to be purchased. You will find in some cases an employee that will give certain exceptions for people who are trying to enroll outside of that enrollment period. For example, a company may say, hey, if you've met your 1 year length of service and want to participate in the ESPP, even if not during the enrollment window, we'll make an exception for you to do so. But others have no exceptions at all. And if you try to enroll outside of that enrollment period, they will tell you simply have to wait for the next one. During the enrollment window, you not only have to decide whether or not you're even going to participate in the plan, but also how much you're going to contribute each paycheck towards purchasing company stock at that discount. And the money that you put towards purchasing that stock is done so post-tax. You are putting money towards the payment or the purchase that has already been taxed. This is dissimilar from what you'd find with like a 401k or a health savings account or a flex spending account, where you're allowed to put money towards those benefits that have not yet been taxed from an income perspective. That's not how ESPPs work. These funds are contributed post-tax. And while you will find some plans that will allow you to, in some cases, pause or reduce contributions after the enrollment window has closed in the middle of the offering period, you typically don't find any that will allow you to increase contributions during the offering period. And even then, even if they do allow some allowances for stopping contributions or reducing contributions, in most cases, that request has to be done within a certain period of time before they actually purchase the stock. So that period in time when they actually buy the stock is called the purchase date. We're going to cover that next. But if you, for example, say 3 weeks before the purchase date that you want to stop contributions, you could have that request denied because of how close it is within that window. An offering period is a period in time where the company gathers up all the contributions from employees who are participating in the ESPP, and they basically put them in a little side account where they are accepting the funds, but they are not yet purchasing the company stock. Offering periods come in 6-month increments. So you might see a 6-month offering period, a 12-month offering period, an 18-month offering period, but they're all going to be either 6 months or a multiple of 6. The first day of the offering period is called the grant date. You might be familiar with that term from sessions 1 and 2, where we talked about restricted stock units and stock options. But with ESPPs, the first day of the offering period is called the grant date. And the fair market value of company stock at the grant date is going to be really important when we talk about the tax implications of selling shares that you purchased at a discount through an ESPP. Let's look at the terms at grant of an ESPP offering a 15% discount to employees buying company stock. You can see that the offering period for these shares is July 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022. There's the 6 months that we discussed. The grant date is the first date of the offering period. So it's July 1st, 2022. And the purchase date is 12/31/2022. The purchase date is the last date of the offering period. This is the day that they will actually take those funds that they put aside from employee contributions and buy the company stock. So that's why you see 12/31 as the date that is listed. And I want you to pay attention to this asterisk at the bottom where you see the discount applied to the lower of the fair market value of the company stock at grant date or purchase date. Just keep that in your mind. We're going to come back to it and give this a name in terms of what they're describing. But what this means is 15% is the discount on company stock. The company is going to look on December 31st, and they're going to say, what is the fair market value of the company stock today? And what was it at the grant date? And we are going to give them a 15% discount on the lower of the two numbers. Now, we covered that the last day of the offering period is called the purchase date, the date when they actually take those funds that have been put aside and use them to buy company stock. So now we need to have an understanding of getting into the tax implications. So there are some terms that I want to introduce, and we're going to go back to that asterisk that I mentioned on the previous slide. The first term that I want to introduce is called the grant date spread. And the grant date spread is the difference between what you paid for the stock and what the fair market value was at the date of grant. I want you to keep track of this. The grant date spread is the difference between what you paid for the stock and what the fair market value was at the date of grant. Then I want you to keep in touch with the term or be familiar with the term purchase date spread. And purchase date is the difference between what you paid for and the fair market value of that company stock at the date of purchase. And the reason I want you to keep up with those terms is because they're going to be helpful when we identify what's called the discount element or the bargain element. We covered discount and bargain elements in step one, video 1 and video 2 of this series, where we talked about ordinary income and how it's taxed and figuring out based on when you sold the stock, what you're going to pay. Is it a long-term capital gain? Is it ordinary income? Is it a short-term capital gain? So keeping up with grant date spread and purchase date spread will help us identify the taxable consequences of selling these shares. And the reason that I put that asterisk on that previous slide where I said, hey, the discount is applied to the lower of the fair market value at the grant date or at purchase date is because this type of plan provision is called a look back provision. And it allows the employer to look back at those 2 dates in time and give the employee a discount on the lower of the prices, whether it's the grant date or the purchase date. So if you think about it this way, if the stock was worth $100 at grant date and it was worth $200 at purchase date, this look back provision ensures that I'm going to get 15% discount on the original $100. Vice versa, if at grant date the stock was worth $200 and at purchase date it was worth $100, my discount is going to be 15% of the purchase date price of $100. Whatever is the lower of the two, that is the point to which the discount will be applied. Let's look at an example. 15% discount with an offering period of July 1st through December 31st. So it's the same terms as before. At grant date, the fair market value of the company stock is $20 per share. And at purchase date, it is $25 per share. This plan has a look back provision, So the discount will be applied to the Let's look at an example of a company plan that has a look-back provision, and the original terms, the terms of the offering period, is a 15% discount on company stock with an offering period of July 1st through December 31st, and the fair market value of company stock at grant is $20 per share, and at purchase date, it has risen to $25 per share. Now, since this plan has a look-back provision, the discount is going to be applied to the lower of these two numbers, which in this case is the grant date fair market value. And that means that the 15% discount will be applied on this $20, and it equals a $3 per share discount when the employee makes that purchase. Now let's bring this thing home by covering the difference between qualified employee stock purchase. Now let's bring this thing home by covering the difference between qualified employee stock purchase plans, non-qualified employee stock purchase plans, and the tax consequences of selling shares under these plans, because now that you know all the terminology, we can bring this thing home with some real life examples. If you understood and retained the difference between incentive stock options and non-qualified stock options that we covered in the second video in this series, then understanding the difference between qualified ESPPs and non-qualified ESPPs should be a little easier because there are some similarities across the two. A qualified ESPP is also known as a 423 plan, and this plan has to be voted on by shareholders, and it caps the discount that an employee could receive at 15% of the fair market value of company stock. They also put a maximum offering period on a qualified ESPP of 3 years. These qualified plans have a number of tax benefits, and going back to incentive stock options, some of these terms and holding requirements will seem very similar to you. In order to get all of the tax benefits from selling shares acquired through a qualified ESPP, you have to make sure that those shares are sold at least 2 years after they were granted to you and at least 1 year after you actually purchased those shares. Now let's assume that we're to the point where we're selling the shares, and I need you to go back to those things where we talked about that look back provision, where there were two things that you had to keep in mind. What is the fair market value at grant date? What is the fair market value at purchase date? And I get to apply my discount to the lower of the two items. We gave you the example of an employee purchasing company stock at $17, a $3 per share discount to a $20 fair market value, even though there was a $25 fair market value of that company stock at the actual purchase date. Well, with a qualifying disposition, when you sell those shares, you're going to have ordinary income from the difference between the amount that you actually paid for the shares and the price to which the discount was applied. So in our example, we paid $17 for the share. There were two prices we had to keep in mind: the $20 value of that company stock at the grant date and the $25 price of the share at purchase date. We got our discount on the grant date price. So that difference, the $20 grant date price and the $17 purchase price, is going to be ordinary income for a person selling these shares through a qualifying disposition. Now let's assume that they sell those shares for $100. If they sold it for $100 per share, they will, in a qualifying disposition, owe long-term capital gains tax on the difference between that $100 sale price and the $20 price of the fair market value at the date of grant. In this qualifying disposition, that $25 number effectively disappears. It's not relevant to the taxation of this sale of company stock. Conversely, if they do not meet the holding requirements of a qualifying disposition under an ESPP, meaning that they did not hold it at least 2 years after the stock was granted and 1 year after they actually purchased the stock, they now have a disqualifying disposition. And now that $25 fair market value at the purchase date becomes very relevant, because instead of them only having ordinary income, which is the type that you typically want to avoid, between the $17 purchase price and the $20 fair market value at grant, they will instead have ordinary income on the difference between the $17 purchase price and the higher number of those two share prices, which now is the $25 fair market value at the purchase date. Breaking that down to easier math for you, it's the difference between, in a qualifying disposition, paying $3 per share of ordinary income tax on the difference between $17 and $20, or paying $8 of ordinary income tax on the difference between $17 and $25 per share. While in a qualified ESPP, there is no income tax at the time that you actually purchase the company shares. That's different when you have a non-qualified ESPP. In a non-qualified ESPP, in the year that you buy that stock at a discount, that discount element will be taxable to you as ordinary income. You don't wait till the sale. Even if you hold on to those shares, in the year that you bought it at a discount, you will have ordinary income reflected on that year's tax return. Since the tax on that discount element is immediate, it means that there is no longer a requirement to have a qualifying disposition in terms of how long you wait to turn around and sell those shares. There is no qualifying disposition under a non-qualified ESPP. So if you wait at least a year and a day, you can sell those shares for hopefully a long-term capital gain, and you will pay either 15% or 20% taxes based on your income, or if you sell it within that period of time for a gain, it will be a short-term capital gain, and the tax rate you pay would be the equivalent of your ordinary income rate. Let's look at an example using the same variables as the sale under our qualified ESPP to see the difference in tax treatment. Now, this is a more extreme example because the discount is greater than 15%, but in a non-qualified ESPP, you can have a discount of greater than 15%. So now we have an exercise price that our employee pays of $5 per share, and the fair market value to which that discount was applied is actually $20 per share. And as we covered, at the time they purchased these shares, this discount element, the difference between the $5 purchase price and the $20 fair market value, is ordinary income at purchase. It will be reflected on the tax return for this year. Now, if they turn around either a year and a day later, more than a year and a day later, or less than a year and a day later, and sell it for $100 per share, they will have a capital gain on the difference between $100 per share and $20 per share. And the length of time they held that stock before selling it will be what determines whether it's a short-term capital gain or a long-term capital gain. And when you look at this discount, you can see that even though there are not as many tax benefits to a non-qualified ESPP, that some people still prefer them because of the more relaxed holding requirements. Their tax treatment may not be as preferable, but also you can have a greater discount that you give to employees. So it really is no right or wrong answer in terms of which is better between a qualified ESPP and a non-qualified ESPP. It's all based on preference of the company, preference of the employee, because they both have their pros and cons. Being an employee at a company that offers an ESPP is a really cool thing because it allows you to, in some ways, get an immediate return on your investment. After all, you're buying stock at a discount to its fair market value, so that difference between the two is almost an immediate return. And there are companies who offer this for years and years and years, and employees who stay at those companies for years and years and years and consistently make contributions to this plan. And as long as they understand the tax implications of making the sale and how it fits with the rest of their portfolio, and that it's not meant to be the only thing that they do in terms of an investment, they can really see it be a boon to their future wealth. So in summary, I hope that you're enjoying this series that we're going through on equity-based compensation, and that's clarifying, at least on a grand scale, some of the things that you see on the news or you may be experiencing as you negotiate new compensation or look over job offers. In our next video in the series, we're going to cover something called an ESOP, an Employee Stock Ownership Plan, and we're going to keep this ball rolling because we want to make sure that you understand the terminology that's ahead of you so that you can use these options to be something that is a part of your wealth journey. Once again, my name is Brenton Harrison. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and the notifications so you know when new content is being posted, and we'll keep bringing it to you as frequently as we can. See you soon.